Hey, is the group waiting on me?
I wasn't sure who's running the meeting.
I haven't been part of these work group meetings in the past, and I really just wanted to, I wanted to observe and be a fly on the wall, but please take the lead.
So where do we go from here? So what, Susan, you had your forestry things that you wanted to talk about.
Well, I think the goal for this meeting, and I don't have the agenda right in front of me, and I don't know if public audience is first on the agenda, but I doubt we have anything for that. So if there's nothing for that, I think the next item on the agenda was the natural stewardship topic from the last meeting, right? I think the goal today was just we talked at the last meeting about some properties that it made sense to apply this to. And then I did look at and that we were just going to go for kind of low hanging fruit for properties. And I only identified 2 other properties that I think really make a lot of sense because no one's doing anything with them at all right now. And one of them I think is called the Darling property. Is that what it's called? Next to Farm Village Road?
That's correct.
Okay, so that's one. And that's really kind of like down an incline, and it's kind of a chunk next to Stratton Brook Park that, as far as I know, we never do anything with. So that would be very low hanging fruit. And then the other one is over on the east side of town. I think it starts with an S, but I don't know the name. It's kind of a long wedge. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? I think it's the Metacomet Trail, kind of.
What street is it on, Susan?
I don't know, but it's in the northeast corner of town, east of Curtis Park.
Yeah. Not the Metacomet, is it? No.
It's kind of next to, is it called Metacomet? No.
No.
Where the water tower?
The water tower is down?
Yeah.
I don't know. Hang on, see if I have it on here. I was looking at it last night. I might have closed that window. S.
There's also where we off of Mountain Road.
Yeah, I think it's off of Mountain Road. Is that in the northeast, Tom?
Yeah.
Okay. It's kind of next to the Metacomet Trail, right?
Yeah. It's usually between the Metacomet Trail and Bloomfield, off of Mountain Road. We have a piece of
It feels like it might be, I don't know, 50, 100 acres. I really, that's a rough guesstimate.
Yeah, there is a piece that runs along Mountain Road between that and the mute yours. Hold on one second.
Oh. Oh, I see you and Orlando are together, I guess.
Yes, there is a piece that runs along Mountain Road. It's not working. That might be the name that you're thinking of. I don't have the map in front of me.
Yeah, I can see if I can pull that up. But anyway, I'll give Marjorie or anybody else a chance in case they thought of any other pieces. I really just did kind of a quick scan for really obvious things.
Yeah. And it'd be helpful to have, I know there are maps on the web, and I do have a POCD here, but it's hard to know. I know we do have the 4 management plans, And I thought they might be a good place to start too, because those are the ones that we've actually looked at and surveyed and, or
Yeah.
had someone come in and look at.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking about those and then adding these other pieces. And I forgot, I did notice one other piece. I didn't realize that we have, I pulled up the GIS thing, but it's like stuck for some reason. I didn't realize that we have 22 acres associated, and it's on the ridge, the Trap Rock Ridge behind the house that's on Sugarloaf Cut.
Yeah, that's another, we wouldn't be managing that. So that's a good example of that.
Yeah, so I thought, it might make sense to kind of carve out like what's the, house related piece, and then like whatever's the part on the ridge would be part of that. And similar to, obviously the Ethel Walker property, of course, there's the fields and all that. And then there's this other one spot called the Wagner Meadow, which was intended to be a, kind of little meadow there. That's kind of gotten overgrown, but with the donor intent that was supposed to be a meadow, I think that should be another carve out in that property. Just, if we do decide to make that a meadow. I don't know if people know what I'm talking about there, but.
So when you mean a carve out, explain what you mean by carve out.
Well, the natural area stewardship, it does talk about, exceptions for, invasives and, adverse conditions like erosion and, kind of a, sensible approach to it. But the goal would be like, okay, this is kind of the plan for the property, is we're not doing exceptional stuff except for this kind of caretaking, but regularly mowing, obviously the fields in front they would not qualify for natural area stewardship. And I think that this Wagner Meadow, I'm not sure who's supposed to be maintaining it, but I don't think anybody has been. But just knowing what I know about the donor intent for money that was given a long time ago for that 10-acre meadow, I think that we should, if we put the natural area stewardship on the natural areas of the Ethel Walker property, we should say, that there's an exception for the Wagner Meadow if we wanted to keep that as a meadow, basically.
Or any of the meadows that the town determines they want to keep.
Yeah. That's why I'm not really putting any meadows on the list. I'm just putting kind of forested areas that are just kind of doing their thing. But that's one spot that I think should be like an exception with that property. And I don't know about, I don't think there's any exceptions in the other properties, but I was trying to kind of think about that up front.
So that would be separate from any meadow property, any meadow stewardship.
Exactly. Yeah, I consider that kind of like a totally different category of stewardship and management for the town, because those do require regular care. And I think, once we kind of get this nailed down, we would then go to the next level and say, okay, like which of the properties we need to do, meadow related stewardship, and when, and how should we do that? And then we'll kind of have like a recipe for these different categories, as well as I know you provided the agriculture document for the meeting as well, Marjorie.
I have more on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so my computer's stuck. I can't find the property on I don't know why it's like totally hung up right now. So I can't find that property. I'll have to look that up and email it after, once my computer comes back to its senses. Anyway.
Susan, is it the 36 acres that's off Stafford Road?
Yes, that's why I thought it started with an S.
Actually, hold on. I could pull it up. I have the GIS up on my computer right now.
Oh, great. Then I'll be able to know if that's it. That's about right, because I thought maybe 50, then, I don't know, I'm not a good estimator, so.
Yeah,
So that's off of
it's kinda-
185.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it is. It's kind of wedged in with the state park is kind of surrounds it, and there's two parcels that are owned by MDC on the ridge, but it's
Okay.
basically the ridge is where this property is located. And it's 36 acres. Basically, it's a hike from the edge of Stafford Road to get to it.
Yeah. So that's another kind of ridge property that nobody's really doing, there's no reason for us to do anything there. So that seemed to kind of just make sense too.
So you're saying the properties that we're not doing anything with currently, obviously they should be in, let's not do anything except invasive removal and things like that. So
Yeah.
I would imagine there might be several little pockets of those around town where we're not doing anything currently. So and those ones on the ridge, they're not likely to be logged or anything like that because the access is horrible.
No. I mean, those are special habitats. I mean, there are so many other little properties in town, but I didn't really, I don't know if anyone else had the time to kind of go through that whole catalog. Like I said, I thought I was just trying to go for like the low hanging obvious properties for a first thing. So this isn't saying, this is kind of a living process. If we find other properties, you guys, Tom and Orlando, you probably know others, we can certainly add others and just kind of, basically sort out our land into buckets. Like, okay, this is natural area stewardship. This is mowing according to whatever. This is shrubland according to whatever. This is, all that. And then we kind of have a, then it's just like more clear what's going on. So if people call or are wondering, we just can say, okay, here's our recipe for the whole thing.
So do we have GIS maps that would call out all these properties so that we could categorize them easily?
Yes. So the town has the GIS mapping, and then we can tell, what's owned by the town and everything. What I did is I scanned over that, and there's a lot of little bits that, I didn't compare that to the open space inventory. There might be notes about each one of those properties, but just kind of clicked on what I thought were obvious things, particularly like near the ridge,
Well,
that.
That's what I was predicting. The GIS can also do the tell the slope for the various properties. I mean, it should be able to combine it with the topography maps, and you'd know right away. And it should be able to, on the computer, pull out the ones that we're never going to access because they're steep. I mean, if we do not just the map of the properties, but use some of the other attribute maps.
Features, yeah.
I
didn't do that. I just picked a few
I was wondering if
obvious
the town-
ones. Yeah, we could.
If the town could, overlay the wetlands areas, the floodplains, the steep slopes, and get those and correlate them, and that should pick out those town properties that we're never going to manage. And we should be able to do that with a computer program, I would think, or at least a mapping GIS program. Do we have staff or interns to do that?
Don't have any interns at this point.
What? But for next summer, I mean, it doesn't have to be right now, but that could be a goal that we have to use the GIS to find those properties that we're never going to do anything with because they're just, inaccessible or
They're wet or whatever. Yeah. Well, I mean, Marjorie, we could probably chip away at it over time,
But it just seems so, I mean, to be able to have it on a map saying these areas are just, right out. We're not going to do anything. And then address that's the low hanging fruit. I would think using the GIS would be relatively simple.
So Marjorie, I'm doing exactly what you're discussing on my computer, on my other computer right now, and I have open space layer, wetlands, and floodplain up. So yeah, you could do that, and then from there, kind of just scan through like quadrants of the town on what pops up as what's town open space versus state, etc.
Yeah.
So it's actually the toughest thing to do about this is actually going through and inventorying all those properties that pop up based on those fields of information, because like I said, we have all those layers.
Yes.
Obviously, wetland layer, floodplain, and steep slopes. We just have the 2016 topography flight So that may assist you in getting steep slopes, but I mean, that's going to really, you're going to have to, go down to a 1 to 50 scale to really see where is a steep slope versus, just,
Yeah, we should know in
Well, we
certain
could-
areas where there would be. Yeah,
Yeah, so Marjorie, just to let you know, I didn't get into that issue like wetlands and floodplains. I did notice, obviously, we have a lot of land down by the river, and I wasn't sure I don't know enough about what's going on there, and that didn't seem to be low-hanging fruit to me. Maybe part of it is and part of it isn't, so I didn't get into that. Just I didn't not think about it, but I didn't know
yeah, at
exactly
least,
how to think about it.
at least it has some floodplain protection. I mean, we're not going to be developing it in that area anyways.
Right. So, and now that we have wild and scenic and all that kind of stuff, there may be, natural areas that would also be kind of a carve out because we are obviously already have the pack and the parking lots and all that kind of stuff. So,
And the one wild and scenic really only protects the river from the federal government coming in and building dams, and it does provide money to the towns to do work on inventory the rivers.
but I think we don't have any intention of like building along our riverfront. So we could, we want to protect that riparian corridor.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they're
And if
regulated.
this is our intention, would kind of affirm that.
So since this is a document for people going forward, I mean, we're looking to put this information going forward. I would think that a resource map would be helpful.
Which is one of the reasons I had the town staff include the open space and recreation area map. I think you guys all have that, or that inventory. We can use this and add that natural stewardship category to it. So we have A, B, C, D. A, B, C. We just add D, natural stewardship, and then just identify those properties as that level, and just adapt this inventory as we go forward.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the work's already done. A lot of those C's will be D's.
Yeah.
Going forward. So.
Yeah, I probably should have started with that, but I used the GIS thing. I don't know. Anyway, like I said, I was just trying to get kind of, building blocks nailed down.
Sure.
And then I know for the forestry, for the forest section, we're also trying to figure out what we wanted those forests for. And the forest management plans we have, we're sort of approaching it from a timber resource viewpoint, and wondering, is that where the town wants to go? I mean, when these things came up before conservation, there was a lot of pushback on that. It wasn't a lot of money, and the argument was it was for the health of the forest, and there's been a lot of information to say that not necessarily for the health of the forest. So, in our open space goals, is timber harvest in there, or should it be in there? I mean, there's a lot of timber harvesting going on in Simsbury, in state properties. I don't know.
Right. Well, no, Marjorie, I think the point is that's not our goal.
I
And
don't
that's
think it is. So, but
for
we need to
those
state that.
plans.
We need to come out and have that in, that we're going to leave these properties for.
right. Well, that's what natural area stewardship says, is that is not the intent.
Well, that's why I'm saying we should include the ones that we have a forest management plan.
Oh, right. Yeah, I was considering those, and then I was just looking for any additional ones like this Stratford Road or whatever it is.
Yeah.
The Sugarloaf Cut property
Yeah,
on the ridge and the property were the three that I thought in addition to those four.
No, I think that's great, but they're the ones that are going to be not managed anyway.
Right, exactly.
So I think, and even so we need to address the ones that we do have management plans for, which I don't think they're appropriate for those spots.
Right.
Those management plan, yeah. they were never adopted, so
No.
they're not, it's not something we've been following or intended.
No, no, but they're still out there, but it would be nice to have something in our plans to say that we're not really interested in timber harvesting as a goal for the town.
Oh, is one of the open space policy goals or something?
Mhm. Unless there's a blowdown and they want to rescue the wood, but that's but active logging in our town lands, I'm not sure that that's a.
Well, we don't have that in our plan anywhere that we're doing. So
I want it stated that it's not.
I see.
Um,
Well, maybe I think that should be in the open space master plan, really, if that's one of the things that we want to affirm, that that's not a goal of our town land. It certainly isn't in there that is a goal. So it's almost like not a goal by omission. But
it is not in there, and I will say, in a number of different places, it references the town's preference for preservation of our open space. And again, we talk about stewardship, but I can't think of one place in there, and I've gone through this document a few times that it mentions timber harvest or a higher level of maintenance in these forested areas.
yeah.
That kind of.
Yeah, it doesn't mention it, but I'd sort of like to have it, stated that that's not, timber harvest is not a goal for these. Because we do have properties that are, they're not ours, but there is timber harvesting going on.
But Marjorie, if we put,
By not saying it, I think it opens up the door later on. Because their argument will be, we're doing the harvesting to help the health of the forest.
well, that's why what we need to do is any properties that we don't think active management is appropriate, we just put under natural area stewardship.
That's
And that kind of settles it right
That
there.
would be fine. Then that would include the 4 properties that.
Exactly,
That would be.
Exactly.
That'd be fine. That'd be fine.
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, Orlando, do you have any input on this, or I mean, we're basically doing this now, so I'm not sure how it changes what we're doing.
Exactly. That's my point.
Orlando's muted, so keep the.
Now, Orlando, click on the blue on your picture and then hit unmute.
Hi, can you guys hear me now? Once you guys identify those areas as natural areas, I would think the whole logging and that kind of stuff would probably just go away.
That would.
So I think identifying as natural means untouched.
Good.
Doesn't mean you don't manage it. You will still manage the property according to whatever the needs are, whether it's invasives or wildlife. But other than that, that's all you're basically doing. You're managing the property, but not allowing any type of logging going on that property.
Yeah. In a perfect world, as we move forward, we would have, like we've talked about the ranger program, where we'd have the friends of whatever forest or that piece of property monitoring for a dumping from abutters, maybe monitoring for an invasive or a trail hazard, if there's a trail that exists there. But that's the extent of what we're talking about. It's not managing timber harvest or anything like that. It's keeping it safe if it's a passive recreation area, and or avoiding monitoring for the illegal dumping going on.
Right.
That may be going on.
Well, putting those 4 properties on would certainly eliminate most of the possibilities of logging, since they're the ones that are more likely to be logged. So putting them on would eliminate that. And then all the other ones that aren't really targets for logging anyway, they'd be on there automatically. So that'd be good.
So we seem to all be in agreement on this thing,
Yeah.
on that topic going forward.
Did we want to talk about the agricultural properties today, or I don't think that was on the agenda, but you sent that document, and I think we're kind of we might need a little bit more, like get a draft together and go over it before we be ready to kind of present that.
Before we do, I thought it was an opportunity to ask some of the questions. I especially was wondering about the leases. How, I know in the POCD it was talking about development of long-term leases. What are our lease policies now with agricultural land?
So the leases that are out there right now have been long-standing with the individual farmers for the properties. That's something that we actually were, as staff, were looking at revisiting as all the leases start expiring.
Yeah.
The other thing too, they're very informal compared to examples that I provided the work group about a year ago. You know, from either from Guilford, from Wallingford, where they have a 30-page document that really outlines what you can and cannot do on the properties you're leasing. We don't have that set up right now.
And do we have, and how long are the leases?
I believe there were 5 to 10-year leases.
Okay, are they rolling leases or are they?
A few of them were,
Yeah.
but as I said, they're all about on the same life expectancy, so they're coming up at the end of the terms. So that's why we've been waiting for those to expire and then address moving forward the ag leases.
And how are the farmers chosen?
Okay, I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
How are the farmers chosen for the, to when they is it an RFP? Is it, do they just?
So that's also part of the comment that we brought up, that there never really was an RFP. It was just someone contacted us and said, "Hey, I would like to lease this property from you." Okay, let's engage in a lease. So that you didn't have like that open process where a group of people were bidding on this.
And then who said yes to the farmer?
Originally, it was a town engineer, Rich Zawitsky, managed all of the leases. So this is a rich project that we've kind of lived with.
All right. And I know in the POCD they were talking about starting up an agricultural committee. I think it's 7.3, coming up with the agricultural subcommittee. That's in the POCD. And so that's something we could look into.
Yeah, I mean, I could say from the planning commission perspective, right now they're really focused on affordable housing. That's their main focus. Agriculture has not been one of the subjects that came up where they want to revisit from the POCD so far.
No, and I was looking at the POCD, and agriculture has really very little. And I think it's one page. And it all comes under sense of place. West Simsbury it's we need to preserve our sense of space. Well, that's Tone Meadow. So they're talking about the little village in West Simsbury. So agriculture is really overlooked in our POCD. I had to look hard to find anything about agriculture.
We didn't really receive a lot of input regarding agriculture during the listening sessions for the POCD. What we received a lot of input was residential development trends, and the impact of development as it relates to the sense of place. Yeah. So we didn't hear from people coming in on from the ag perspective.
No, and I know I submitted some comments on soils and things like that, which gets me also to the the town has maps for farmland soil. We're not making any more of that, but we've subsequently developed on a lot of it. So how we're going to what kind of plans we're going to do for trying to steer development away from those areas. I know we don't have any control if it's privately owned, but at least the town should be thinking about that. And if we don't have enough farms, I know a lot of the farms in town have been the development rights have been purchased through the Simsbury Land Trust, and there is some town land as well. But one of the things I was reading in some of the documents about agriculture was the making either a town committee, or else if we don't have a regional, reaching out to some of the local areas and forming a regional commission for agriculture. It just seems to be terribly overlooked in our POCD. I think something to address.
I'll just add that I felt like it was potentially really overlooked in the Parks and Open Space Master Plan. And I added a little bit to that. And, you know, I think part of it is, I know from being in the Grange, the farmers are super busy.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to even get them to come to a meeting. If they come to town hall for something, it's usually because they're super mad or have like a serious issue that they want to address. So I think that it requires like us to reach out to them to see what they need. And, you know, I already expressed that my goal for the revising our agricultural lease process is to just make it as beneficial and simple for the farmers as possible. If they see a 30-page document, you know, they would have to be reassured, like, this is all good stuff that's just written in there, but we need you to just be a good farmer. You know, that's really, I really want to support farmers in their primary mission of growing food for the community. We need better support for that statewide, really.
And then as a town, we need to adopt what kind of agricultural practices we want to support too.
So we had already talked about that we would prefer organic or farmer's pledge on town land. But I don't think that that's written in our current leases.
In that booklet that I referenced and sent out, there's a page on best agricultural practices, and I think we can list on that.
Yeah.
So, but it'd be nice to see, a bigger emphasis on maintaining these agricultural properties in Simsbury, because it's really overlooked. I mean, the POCD talks about sense of place and resiliency, but it doesn't talk about food. I mean,
right.
Cultural. So anyway, that's what I want to bring up. But I do have a couple more references that I'll send and some things that I typed up, synthesizing from that. So I'll send it on to the next one.
So when we talked about our, Mike might remember, when we had our 15-point list of, priorities for acquisition, I think agriculture and prime soils or something, was that on there? If it isn't, then we should, I think it is.
Thought it was.
Okay. I was double cross-checking with that, which was kind of also in the works to make sure we didn't overlook it. So I think, either that list might be something we could affirm, and then we can, start to draft the, just as a strategic plan, if we can get that list nailed down and then get our ag leases and then get our best practices for maintained grasslands and stuff like that. We're kind of building a little, repository slowly. And I noticed that related to Sustainable Connecticut, which we keep on bringing up, they are updating their action items, whatever that you get points for. I don't know what they're called. They have new action items on pollinator gardens or supportive habitats, dark skies, like a bunch of things that we've been talking about are now kind of coming along through that system. So I think, if we develop something, we can share it with them. If they develop something, we can pull it into the town. And I think, we should be able to pull together a good set of, tools to try and help people understand how to take care of our landscape and our farms and everything, with kind of specific little, what I would like is specific little white papers on each thing, because if you present the whole story to people, it's kind of overwhelming. But if they say, okay, how should I make sure I don't kill all the insects? Here's your little list of stuff. So that's.
So for the next meeting, I can have a thing about the agriculture put together. Susan, you've got the thing for the, I can also pull something together about the grasslands and the mowing schedules for those.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be easy. So
I think there's a little bit of information about it in the master plan, but maybe, more specific information might be useful. I mean, Tom, there is some information about that, like mow later.
Yeah.
And
we've already incorporated it. We're pushing our mowing schedules, the annual mowing schedule for for instance, the Triangle on Barndore Hills we've asked the farmer who mows to mow after the first frost.
Okay.
The Case Circle will also be mowed later in the year. Well, it was mowed. It was mowed a few weeks ago, but next year it will be mowed after the first frost. The one on Laurel Hill, Laurel Lane and Great Pond, we pushed off mowing that all through the season, and the plan was to try to keep it as, again, after the first frost. It got done a little earlier than that, but
So why are
we are.
So I'm sorry, Tom. After the first frost, that's to keep it as a grassland for birds. But if you're keeping it as a grassland for pollinators, you want to do it early in the spring. So that's the sort of, we have to determine which ones we want for what.
Okay. Well, I guess then we'll need some further discussion on that.
Yeah.
I thought after the first discussion we had during the master plan process, it was, the first frost was kind of the guideline we had been told to use.
That's good for keeping it as a grassland. But if you want the non-grass species, and a lot of the insects will hibernate over in the plants for the winter. And then if you mow it in the fall, then you're cutting out the seed heads, which also feed the birds. So if you mow it in the spring, early spring, before the birds come back and start to nest, so that's where I think the plan has to be as to which ones we mow at what time. So that would
I do agree with Tom. I mean, the clarification has to be there, but we have cut back on our open space mowing by probably about 95%, which has been a good thing. And we do want to incorporate a lot more pollinator pathways around town, which we have a full 5-year plan that we hope to continue to do. Excellent. A couple of parcels a year to keep the mowing down to a good extent.
Excellent. So we can discuss that, or I can bring up some stuff, and sometimes it's only like a mow a third of the field.
Right.
Yeah.
So that would cut it back even more. Just mow it every 3 years, one portion. All right, good. I'll bring forth some of that information next time.
Yeah, and Marjorie, maybe or somebody knows which properties are best for birds and which ones are best for pollinators. I think that's kind of the.
Do we have a map of the meadows that need to be mowed, that are the open spaces that are mowed?
I don't know if we have a specific. Do you have a specific map, Orlando? I don't think we do.
On the mowing, we don't, but we can come up with something. I think if you have to.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
This is exciting.
Good. All right. Were there other topics?
I think Lino.
On the agenda.
If there's nothing else, then we could adjourn and then task Maria's office with like what she did this time, finding another date that would work for everyone.
Yeah. And then we can just put this on the next open space meeting to say that we have these 4 plans and we identified these 2 additional areas, and part of this ridge that's part of the 22-acre property, and just see what people think of those is kind of the low-hanging fruit for the natural area stewardship. And then we can just kind of revisit whenever it comes up or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good.
Okay.
All right.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.